Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. It is Sunday evening, which means you know what time it is. That's right, it's time for another episode of FPL Sunday with David Munday. We are new and improved this week. Our tech is in a much better place. Quite literally, actually, because I remember to actually put my microphone somewhere near my mouth this time, which always helps. It was great being back with you guys last time out after a bit of an extended period off. So thank you to everybody who caught last Sunday's episode, and thank you for everyone for joining us now. Those of you who have seen the show before presumably know the drill by now. You get the story of your game week in the live chat, and I read out the best ones. We go through the tweets of the week, and then we look at some important FPL talking points from the week just finished, or we obviously got a Monday night game, but from the weekend just finished, and look ahead to the new game week. So hello to those of you in the chat. Luke Deemer is an Arsenal fan who's already saying goodbye to the league. You are not the only person I know who supports Arsenal who feels that way. My best mate is in exactly the same boat. I felt for him after that result today. It is a difficult time as an Arsenal fan. 4 points dropped from winning positions, I think it is, in the last two matches. So yeah, sorry Luke, but it's good to have you here. Hopefully we can cheer you up and point you towards something more exciting than supporting Arsenal in a title race. It is exciting, but certainly stressful. We've got D-Raj here with 72 points with Salah still to go. I may know someone who also has Salah still to go. It might be me. So I can understand how that's very exciting position to be in. John is a West Ham fan. He said, "I'll be gutted if we've given City the league. Derbies are often tough, and that's something City doesn't have to deal with very often." But he is also mentioning that he's got 73 points for Salah to go as well. I mean, in actual fact, 75 if you count Estupinian coming in as an auto sub, who I'm going to guess is for Zinchenko. So not alone there. Simon Thompson says, "Hi David, my main question this Sunday evening is how on earth did Fernandes blank?" I'm going to guess. Ooh, he's watched that Forest game. Yeah, I don't know. He played very well. It's another game where he's blank but played well. We talked about Fernandes a little bit last week. My opinion on him hasn't really changed. I think that he is due some points. We've got obviously that double game week coming up for United soon. He's very much on my list. Heike New also says, how on earth did Bruno Fernandes not got a goal or assist? Well, sometimes they tease. I haven't had a chance to see what the goals imminent table looks like after that game. I wouldn't be surprised if he is on that table or in those sorts of tables as we move forward. Beyond Blank Gameweek 32, obviously they don't play. But we have all got our eyes on Man United assets, haven't we, for moving forward. Stuart also in the chat saying, Bruno dodging points again. I've got 59 with Salah to go. Lots of people with Salah to go, which is exciting. I'm going to talk about Salah very shortly because he's also in my team as well. I was surprised by how many people didn't have him around my rank bracket anyway, according to Live FPL. So Monday night is going to be big. Normally when we come into these episodes on a Sunday, a lot of the big stuff's already happened and we're waiting on something particularly boring on Monday night. But wow, we could not have a more exciting Monday night planned if we tried. Which seems apt when we consider that this is FPL Sunday with David Monday. So yeah. So with that, we're going to move into my tweets of the week, and you'll be happy to know that I have not included one of mine this week. So don't worry, no hubris here. But yeah, some great tweets as ever. I'm a big fan of what people in the FPL community are capable of doing on Twitter. It's a great way of looking at this game in a slightly more light-hearted way, which is sometimes what you need on a Sunday evening. Sometimes if you've had a bit of a rough day with the points, or maybe a rough Saturday with the points, or you've had an all-right Saturday, Sunday, but everyone else has had an amazing one, sometimes you just need a bit of a laugh. And if that's the sort of thing that you do normally need on a Sunday evening, then do not forget to... There we go. I've pressed the button on the subscribe, and it's behind one of my tweets. We'll try that again. There we are. Do not forget to like and subscribe to Fantasy Football Scout on YouTube. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification as well so that you can get more content like this, more riveting high-tech content where the widgets are behind the tweets. You gotta love it. But yes, speaking of the tweets, our first one this weekend comes from FBL Point Break Andrew, who's used the meme of Pedro Pascal in some distress from The Last of Us. It's captioned, I think I need to stay off FPL Twitter for a while because he's got no Watkins, no Grealish, or Solanke, and no free hit to use in Game Week 32. Well, Andrew, might I suggest that you take a free hit in real life and perhaps make like Sergeant Angel and PC Danny Butterman by staying up late to watch Point Break without having to get out of bed the next morning. He's a big fan of the movie. Maybe that's what will comfort him on this particular evening. Everybody else, they're comforted by your meme. So thank you very much, Andrew. What else have we been tweeting about this weekend? Well, goalkeepers have been at the heart of FPL this weekend, which is quite exciting for me. I love a good goalkeeper switch, as many of you know. A lot of the time, they just sort of fade into insignificance, and it's a bit dull. But yes, I think everybody's very aware of the goalkeeper shenanigans that we've had this week. Here we've got FPL Corf celebrating 5 points for Raya, despite conceding twice on Saturday. And my favourite part of how these tweets sort of progress is the fact that Andy from Let's Talk FPL reminding us that Kepa got 9 saves, 2 bonus, Raya 7 saves, 2 bonus of 5 points as well. He tweeted this at 5:08 p.m, which is 22 minutes before the Man City game kicked off against Leicester. Now, a lot of people brought in Man City defenders. A lot of people were going, well, you just have no idea which Man City defender's going to play, so surely it has to be Ederson. Now, we've been here a lot of times before, and a lot of people have been burned. Well, Andy predicted it just right. He said, I reckon we're going to have a 1 to 2 pointer here for Ederson. That's exactly what we got. It was another Man City game where, they don't concede many goals, do Man City, but they seem to just concede the wrong goals at the wrong time for fantasy managers, because they never normally get whacked. They never normally get completely pulverized. It's just one measly goal at a time, and when that happens, well, that doesn't exactly do well for fantasy managers. So he's turning into a bit of a troll with Ederson. It's just 2 returns in his last 10 matches. The issue appears to be the fact that he should be a good option, considering how good Man City's defence tends to be across the course of the season. But the hard thing is the fact that City do still concede those goals enough in small enough drips and drabs, and it damages clean sheet potential, and he comes with no saves as well compared to some of these other guys, because they basically just don't concede enough shots for him to really make any. It's very rare that he has to do anything, and he's not a bad goalkeeper, but that defence isn't set up to play attack versus defence, or rather it is, but one specific way around. They're not used to being the defenders in an attack versus defence drill, so they concede. The thing is, we know enough about his vibes now that these 2 memes I've got on the screen are particularly meaningful. For those of you who are podcast listeners, or maybe just sticking this on in the car or something so you can't actually see the tweets, I will describe them to you. We've got the old interrogation meme, with the officer and the crazy guy being interrogated in the police Ederson room, the police interview room, or those basically the Ederson room at this point, with the caption, "Are those Ederson clean sheets in the room with us right now?" Implying, of course, that they're imaginary, which they basically are. They're sort of, Schrodinger's clean sheets. You kind of go into the game week expecting them, and then they don't happen. And then the other one is good old James Franco, about on the gallows with the noose around his neck, with the caption "First time." With that's the subtitles. The caption from FPL Prop Joe is "Me to new Ederson owners, first time." Yeah. So we know now. We just kind of know this is what's going to happen. Now, speaking of getting a good understanding of a player's vibes, or maybe a team's vibes, we are really now starting to get an understanding of how Chelsea are going to operate under Frank Lampard. They suck big time, and our own FPL Harry knew it before kickoff yesterday, thanks to this quote from Lampard in the build-up to the Brighton game, where he said that there's going to be opportunities against Brighton for people who didn't play against Real Madrid or even Wolves. And of course, they were woeful in both of those games. So if they couldn't even make the team for them, how good are they going to be? Well, Harry came to the correct conclusion. Start your Brighton players. Although, funnily enough, actually it didn't really help many people, because McAllister didn't get anything, Matoma didn't get anything. They could have done, though. Brighton were fantastic, and we are actually going to talk about them a little bit later, but the main thing here is we just know now Chelsea are a team to target, which we're also going to talk about as well. Now, it wouldn't be an FPL Sunday with David Munday if we didn't have some tweets about people's benches. This happens all the time. And we just had chalk and cheese again this week, where some people get some good luck, some bad luck. If this was the Scout cast, we'd call it rough with the smooth. So what have we got here? Speaking of the Scoutcast, Andy, FPL mode, he lost Zinchenko to injury, like many of you, and that meant that Botman came in for 1 point. Meanwhile, get this name right, Stu G, he tweeted, he lost Zinchenko as well. By the way, if you're a Zinchenko owner, let us know in the chat. He lost Zinchenko, and he got 15 points off his bench from Dominic Solanke, and he's used the old Napoleon Dynamite yes meme there, which he can be very happy about. Now, I have to say, getting 15 points for Dominic Solanke is perhaps a rather juicy and tasty cherry tomato of a thing to happen to you. Extra points if you get that reference. You're probably one of the kids, though, because you probably saw that on TikTok. We're going to talk about the Bournemouth man later, but for now, I'm just going to treat myself, because I'm hungry and it's Sunday night, and Dominic Solanke got 15 points, to a cherry tomato. Very good. I'm not going to try and catch it in my mouth. Like, that was my plan, not to try and catch it in my mouth on the stream. In case you haven't already realised, the one you saw elsewhere was about my 6th or 7th take. And I'm amazed that the Scout social media team haven't put out all of the outtakes of me throwing a cherry tomato in the air and then just dropping it or hitting my tooth or my eye. So I'm considering myself very lucky there. So our final tweet of the week, something just really wholesome, to be honest. We moved from one healthy snack to a healthy bit of wholesome content. I couldn't really ignore this one. I can't. It's from FPL Kids. That's who it's from. But I've hidden part of the tweet because I don't want to disclose the name of his child, who he's posted in this picture on Twitter, holding up a tablet with his FPL team on it, with the caption, "He just wants a green arrow for his 9th birthday," which is so sweet. If you're on a green arrow this week, then consider yourself lucky, because this kid here considers that a bit of a birthday present. I can see in the chat that Pudge278 says, "What do you make of Steele not starting?" Well, you have asked the right question, to quote iRobot. We're going to talk about that very soon. And Luke Deemer says, "Can we talk about the chat, not Twitter, because I don't use it?" That's an excellent point. Well timed as well, because we're about to move on to something that isn't Twitter, which is my team for Game Week 31, just gone. And unlike last week, I've actually remembered to include a picture of it this time. So, how did I get on in Game Week 31? Well, how have I got on so far? Because, of course, I've got Salah to come. I had lots of big decisions to make in midfield for this one, which I think most of us did. It was obviously around Rashford. But being on free hit 32, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and wildcard 33 the week after, it basically meant that unlike people who don't have those chips, who presumably you wanted to hold on to him because you don't want to have to get him back in again or potentially lose value to bring him back in, I actually wanted to get rid of him for kind of the flip of that. Like, I didn't want to lose value on keeping him because his price is going to go down and has gone down. So I had to shake him out of my team, knowing that I had the free hit and the wild card to fall back on. But that in and of itself presented its own problems, because it was, who am I going to replace him with? Which, I mean, again, that was basically the story of everyone's game week prep, but all for different reasons. For me, it was because I'd have a benching headache about my 5th midfielder and my third. I've had that issue. My 5th midfielder and my 3rd forward. I've had that issue for 6 or 7 game weeks now, ever since I upgraded Greenwood to Watkins, because Watkins just needed to come in and I didn't want to get rid of Haaland or Kane to do it. So I've had a front 8 for a while, and it's been an issue. And so then it meant that, knowing that I wanted to, I basically wanted to get rid of Rashford, but I didn't really fancy buying someone in and then having to decide between, I think who I had at the time would have been Saka, Odegaard, Mitoma, McAllister. Who of those do I bench? That was just a really tricky thing. I just decided that what I needed in the end was I needed to just replace Rashford with someone I was happy to bench. So what I did was, on Friday night, just to save me the issue, because I was quite happy with my 11 outside of that anyway, but I needed to sell Rashford so I don't lose value on him, knowing that I can, free hit and wildcard, etc. I just went for Andreas Pereira. I did that on Friday night. And then I put my phone down and I went to bed, which was nice, because I think a lot of people, it was a big stress, and I just did it quickly. Now, my problem was I spent most of Saturday morning just sort of mooching about not doing FPL stuff, and I thought I'd check in about 10 o'clock. And at that point, my only change was Rashford to Pereira. And then I just went on the transfer page and I was like, oh, I actually have enough money here. I didn't check my balance after I'd made the transfer. I actually have enough money here to go straight from either Saka or even Odegaard to Salah for a -4. And then I was like, oh, okay, I probably want to do that because, well, I want Salah on my free hit. I want him on my wild card as well. And I thought getting him in before, I am guessing, a slew of price rises, and with a game against Leeds too, before other people maybe do it as well, like definitely feels worth doing. But the problem was which Arsenal player to get rid of. And I even tweeted about this, saying that in the last 4 matches, in the last 6 away matches, Odegaard actually had better stats than Saka. But basically Saka had more scary ownership figures to go without, and I was a coward. And I have been rewarded like one, because I took the coward's approach and sold Odegaard. He punished me within 10 minutes against West Ham, and guess what? Saka missed a penalty as well. So, there we are. If nothing else, fortune favours the brave, because anyone who cowardly, toes the line towards effective ownership, well, you're going to be punished. In terms of the rest of my team, though, I've actually done pretty well, so I shouldn't moan too much, even though that story is quite funny. I've had Alex Moreno in my team for a couple of weeks now. I'm so pleased that finally came off. And it came close to not coming off because Moreno getting that assist for the Watkins goal, and then it was chalked off by VAR, and then we all moaned about it, and we all manifested it into actually happening again. So thank you very much, everyone else who joined me to manifest that goal. That was brilliant, because I've got Watkins as well. Someone has noticed in the chat as well, Josh14X says, you benched White. Guy has been a monster recently. You're absolutely right. I think the lesson that you learn whenever you listen to me is, here's how you get green arrows while making bad decisions. Because I made a bad transfer decision, I made a bad benching decision, and I've still got a green arrow up to 54k. It was 47k on Saturday night, but the Arsenal game hasn't really helped me, bearing in mind I'm without Martinelli. And of course I benched White as well. So but I benched White, I benched Estupinian, and I started Trippier, Moreno, and Chilwell. And but Kepa, we talked about him a little while ago. He came through for me as well. 6 points for him, 10 for Moreno. Actually, kind of differentially, really, because a lot of people have started to get rid of Chelsea players. I think a lot of people had Luke Steele, for example. A lot of people had Raya. So Kepa getting something was nice. My midfield: McAllister, Matoma, Salah, and Saka. Hasn't really combined for much. In fact, I think it's combined for 4 points so far, because Saka's just obviously got nothing. So not looking great there, but could look incredible on Monday night if Salah delivers. And then the front line, Captain Haaland as an easy one, Watkins and Kane. So 64 points, -4, so 60 points. It was a slightly bigger green hour on Saturday night, slightly smaller green hour on Sunday night, but could be a huge one on Monday night. So fingers crossed there. So that's my team so far for the game week. I am going to be free hitting in 32. In fact, I've already hit the button. It's already done. I am going to talk you through a load of other things. We're going to have a look at a few other things, and then we're going to have a look at my free hit team. So stick around if you want to see that. As I said, that's is how you get green arrows from bad decisions. That's what you get when you listen to me. And that might be useful. That might be useful. If you make bad decisions, maybe you need some David Monday ones, so it'll help you get some green arrows. Pedrosa says, any argument for not using the free hit for game week 32 and using it in other game weeks? I think it's team dependent. I know that's a little bit of a stock saying, but I think that now is the time to use it. There is a lot of teams out there that just can't really staff the whole game week. I am one of those because I got lots of Brighton, and I've got a bit of Chelsea, so that's 5 players who aren't going to play. I'm not all that happy about the ones that I've got in my team who have games as well. So I think now's the time to go for it. It depends what other chips you have as well. But the double game week in 34, whilst you're going to have more players to choose from, if you still got your triple captain, I think that's got to be when you use it, personally. Especially when you look at Man City's fixtures in that game week. So I think this is the one to use it. And to be honest, I haven't got the stats for this. I was just seeing on a number of different sites. Twitter's one of them, Scout's another, Live FPL as well. That actually, a lot of people already use their free hit. A lot of people used their free hit quite a while ago, and I deliberately didn't use it a while ago, knowing that I would want to use it around now. So if you're worried about using it now and following the crowd too much, because if you do that too much, of course your green arrows are smaller. If you follow the crowd, I totally understand that. I think sometimes the spheres we all operate in can be a little bit like echo chambers, and it feels like everyone's free hitting, but actually it's only a drop in the ocean of the managers out there who aren't playing one because they can't play one. And so even if your team looks exactly like everybody else's who you talk to in group chats or see on social media or engage with on Fantasy Football Scout, like that doesn't necessarily matter, because that's actually quite a small group of people, and as a clutch of people you could all move up together with that free hit. So personally, I think now's the time to use it. I'm biased, my team needs it, so I would say that, but I think this is the time to use it. So this is usually where I go over some of the biggest talking points of the game week and what they mean for the next one. It's always a time for me to plug some of the fantastic award-winning editorial content that Neil and Tom do for Fantasy Football Scout, which includes the FPL Scout Notes, which is an in-depth examination of recent matches published in quick-fire time as ever. This week it does come with a little bit of a caveat in that both of the teams that I'm going to talk about and that they've done some stuff on don't actually play in Game Week 32 in Brighton and Chelsea. But I think that this is still really important for people because if you're someone without a free hit and you still need to navigate the rest of the season potentially without a wild card, so do let us know if that's you, then this is still going to be useful. And also, even those of us who are on a free hit right now will want to know what to do with the assets of these clubs anyway. You know, I'm currently with Kepa, Chilwell, Stupinian, McAllister and Matoma. So I think there's still some useful stuff here that we can learn from Chelsea versus Brighton before we come on to the real fun free hit stuff. So, Brighton. So we had some questions earlier about Jason Steele. I think I called him Luke Steele earlier. I do apologise. I think he was a United player a long time ago. Freudian slip. I'm good at those. So, Luke Steele. Not Luke Steele. Jason Steele. Let's just call him the Metal Man. Budget goalkeeper, obviously 3.9 million. I think he is priced now. Didn't play, and you may be a bit concerned about that if you've got him in your team. The good news is that his omission from the game was described as precautionary by Andy Naylor. Andy Naylor, I think he is. He used to work for the Argus. This guy. Which is the local Brighton paper, but I think he got snapped up by the Athletic, so he's in the know. ITK, as they say. It's been described as precautionary, so it probably means that he's going to be okay. And we know that Sanchez hasn't really played all that much. And, of course, De Zerbi has talked about the fact that Steele is closer to his style than Sanchez as well, which is really important. So I do think longer term, Steele's going to be back. He's obviously not going to play in 32. But if you don't have a free hit, you know, you might be thinking, do I get rid of him? Depends who else you've got, of course, but holding on to him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, is what I would say. The other thing, though, that is interesting, now I'm a McAllister owner and I'm a Matoma owner. There we go, we'll get there in the end. And I'm a bit frustrated that Brighton did so well against Chelsea, but I didn't really get anything for it. Now, I'm already looking at players to offload, so I've got that wildcard coming up. I know that Brighton have good fixtures after when I'm going to play my wildcard after this free hit, so you know, I still want some coverage, but already starting to think that I need to potentially drop down to just Matoma because of something that happened against Chelsea, which is another injury blow that probably won't sound relevant to begin with, but will become relevant. So Veltman picked up an injury and Ferguson picked up an injury as well. Now, the Ferguson one is a bit annoying because 4.6 million striker would be great. Danny Welbeck came in, straight swap. Now, the one that is trickier is Veltman because him coming off meant they needed to reshuffle a little bit because Tariq Lamptey still wasn't fit. The ex-Vibes player from a number of years ago, ex-Lively, I think we used to call him, still not fit yet. And so they had to tweak things around a little bit. And what they did was they put Gross at right wing back, which he's done before. He's played there before, so it's not new. It's something we have seen before. He's capable of, and might even be something that they go with long term if Lamptey and Veltman aren't going to make it for the rest of the season. And so then what happened then was that McAllister had to drop from being a number 10 to come back into a deeper midfield role, which meant that he's filling in for Gross. And you know that's basically why. He I think of the three, because we've all been on Matoma, we've been of March and McAllister, they've been the three to sort of look at in the midfield. It kind of maybe looks like potentially McAllister's the one who might have to come out if we're going to be looking at players to sell or on the free hit. If you're not on the free hit and you've got three Brighton players but you want to keep some of them but you still need to reach a certain number of players for this particular game week, then selling McAllister's not really the end of the world because he isn't going to play this week, and potential possibility here that when they do play again, he's going to play too deep to actually have an impact. His goal threat from open play was fairly decent. Had two shots in the first 28 minutes before Veltman came off. But then after that, he had three more shots in the game, but they were all from 22 yards out or more. And so we've got that on the screen right there. That's his shot map for the game. And you can see that after that change, his shots went from being inside the box to all of them outside the box, which just means his goal threat has dropped, which is a bit frustrating. But hey, there we are. But Brighton is still worth holding on to. Brighton is still worth holding on to their players because they now have 49 shots across their 2 Game Week 29 fixtures, and then they had another 17 against Spurs last week, and they had 26 shots against Chelsea. They registered a score of 2.94 expected goals. You know, they're on fire. They're on fire. So you've got to keep at least Matoma, is what I think. And to be honest, I think I'm going to hold on to a Estupiñán when I wildcard, to be honest, because their fixtures are looking pretty good. And he had 3 shots on Saturday. He is due a goal, according to Neil at Fantasy Football Scout in their article on that particular game. And I think he's right. So I probably will be holding on to him because their fixtures are still good on the other side of the fun stuff of the next couple of weeks, which is free hit and possible wildcard. As for Chelsea, yeah. I mean, do we really bother with them anymore? No. They're about the only team in the league now with basically nothing to play for. And then once they've been trounced out of Europe, they'll be on the beach, really, you'd got to say. And just, you know, Chilwell, Kepa are the big 2 that we've got. I can't see any reason to hold on to them, really. If you're not on a free hit, they're easy sells for a Trent or one of the goalkeepers who's definitely going to have a game. You know, if you got a wild card as well, we're getting rid of those, aren't we? So yeah, that's what we can learn from Chelsea versus Brighton on Saturday. As ever, make sure you head to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk every weekend for instant reaction to the games with some fantastic stats, which include the following. But what we're going to do in terms of what the stats were on Saturday, and I should just always apologise, the timing of this video always makes it very, very difficult for me to analyse Sunday's games in much more detail outside of, you know, just kind of talking about the general overlay of the game and perhaps some of the social reaction to it. It's really hard to really delve into the stats because we want to be going live pretty much as that full-time whistle goes, so we can just capture everybody when they've sort of taken a deep breath, the football's finished for the day, and you need somewhere just to kind of unwind and just, you know, touch into some of the light-hearted elements of the game and have a general light think through to next week. So the stats we got here are for Saturday, but we obviously do have a free hit coming up. So I'm going to be looking at all of these stats from the weekend with a view to what does it mean for our free hits, rather than talking about Brighton being top of the shot chart again for Saturday. You know, what does that mean for Game Week 32? It means nothing because they're not playing. So we're not going to talk about that. Although I appreciate I just talked about it, so I do apologise. The stuff I want to talk about, though, is the fact that Spurs on Saturday had 24 shots against Bournemouth. That is the second highest for that particular day. I know that there's a little bit of a lethargy around Spurs assets. You know, they do play in Game Week 32. It is against Newcastle, so that does put people off. But Newcastle, last couple of games, I don't know. I don't want to say the wheels are coming off because that feels unnecessarily disparaging to them because they are having a good season. But, you know, Trippier hasn't particularly delivered in a little while. So all I'm saying is the fact that Spurs, you know, the fact that they lost wasn't for lack of trying. They had 3 big chances, which was the 3rd highest of any team who played on Saturday. It's not for lack of trying, and they've got some great attacking players in that team. So I still think that the likes of Kane and Son definitely worth considering. Now, an area of the free hit that I think people are sort of slightly sleeping on is Fulham, because again, they were another team that actually had a very busy Saturday in front of goal with 21 shots. They finished in the top 3 for shots on Saturday. And they have got a very tasty Game Week 32 fixture against Leeds, whose defence looks really woeful right now. I mean, to concede 5 goals at home to a Crystal Palace side that basically wasn't scoring goals until they faced them, that tells you all you need to know, to be honest. And I think people sleep on Fulham because they haven't got Mitrovic, but they've definitely got players in that team who can score goals. We're going to have a little bit of a look at players who could help you out there in a little while. But yeah, they were the 3 teams that really lit things up from an attacking potential on Saturday. Then in terms of individual players then, because we don't care about teams. We don't buy teams in this game. We buy players. What can we learn in that particular regard? Well, it's really annoying because technically the busiest player on Saturday was Danny Welbeck, who doesn't play in Game Week 32. But the big thing is that Harry Kane was one of the ones who was right at the heart of things for Spurs on Saturday with his 6 shots on goal. Ollie Watkins still absolutely firing the shots off. But Ivan Toney as well. I mean, the thing about Game Week 32 is a lot of people, I think, are still sleeping on Toney. I mean, I'm one of them. I sold him, but he still just continues to keep on shooting. He is a very, very busy man in front of goal. I am now at the stage of the evening where the light is going down a little bit, and I've forgotten that my computer has I'm going to turn the brightness down on your screen when it gets past 7 p.m. And I now basically can't see some of my notes. So I'm going to do something I've not done on a Scout stream before. And it's just I'm going to put my glasses on. And this is where you know that I really am getting old, because I historically haven't worn them on these streams, because that's not what people are used to seeing. But they're going to have to go on because I've been left with no choice. And all of a sudden, everything appears to be in HD for me. So we talked about players from Fulham who could potentially help you out on your free hit. And as I just make this slightly bigger so that you can all see, one of those is Willian, who on Saturday had 5 shots. That's the same as Toney and Watkins. 3 of those are in the box. Slightly less in the box than Toney and Watkins. We had 4 and 5 each respectively. But it just goes to show that this Fulham team is a team that is definitely out there to give it a go. Willian has actually got a bit of FPL pedigree a little while ago. So, you know, potentially a nostalgia pick. We sometimes get accused of that, don't we? But if you're looking for differentials on that free hit, then, you know, Willian potentially worth considering. As I said, he's one of those Fulham players who's up and around and shooting a lot. And he's not the only one, because Andreas Pereira with 4 shots, Harry Wilson with 4 shots as well, Daniel James with 3 shots. That's 4 Fulham players are in the top. I think it's 15 players for shots on Saturday's game. And personally, I'm on Pereira. He's the one that offers the best budget offering, really, and a bit more creative potential as well. But yeah, I do think that people need to be considering Fulham. I think that they're getting overlooked a little bit because they're Fulham. But I think once we've all seen the Leeds game on Monday night, and I anticipate Liverpool kind of really just wrecking them, I think that hopefully that's going to wake everyone up to realise that, yeah, Fulham is a great opportunity if you want a differential on your free hit. So yeah, that's the goal threat guys. What about the creativity guys? Well, some interesting names on here as well. Some more potential differentials. So Jacob Ramsey, Bruno Guimaraes, and Theo Walcott were the joint top for key passes on Saturday. Do not worry, I am not going to sit here and start encouraging you to get Theo Walcott. If nothing else, I mean, you know, if he scores the hat-trick, maybe you can do the old peep show 3-0 Walcott, but I don't think that's going to happen. Well, you know who Southampton are playing in Game Week 32, and Arsenal really, really need a win, so I can't see it happening. Let's focus instead on Jacob Ramsey. Aston Villa are looking fantastic. Ollie Watkins is basically in everyone's team now, right? He's going to be on your free hit as well, because you can't really afford to go without him. And so then, are you at the point now where you're going, do I need the assister to make his goals actually count for anything? I had Moreno at the weekend, and it meant that the Watkins goal gave me an even bigger green arrow, because not only did I have the guy everyone has, I've then got the assister who not everybody has. So if you're looking for routes into that, Jacob Ramsey possibly had a very productive afternoon. And, you know, I feel bad now because we're talking about Willian, and I totally forgot that actually, yeah, Willian was also at the top, or near the top of creative players on Saturday with 3 key passes. And so that means he was top in that Fulham game for key passes and for shots. So if nothing else, just solidifies him in everybody's thinking. Alex Moreno also up there as well. So some interesting differential options available, I think, for Game Week 32 after the way that they have played in Game Week 31. So I keep talking about free hits. It's about time we actually get into the specifics of it all. What I have done is I have built a free hit team. It's my free hit team, so it's very subjective. You might think it's terrible. It's not the best one necessarily. It's the one that I think is the best, but that only counts for about 54,719th of an opinion, because that's my overall rank right now. If you're on a free hit, let me know in the comments, and let me know if there's anyone that you think should be in there as well. FPL Jones Black says, I'm on free hit in 32 as I would need to do a -12 to get 11 players. Seen a bit of saltiness from people who have already used it. Interesting. I don't see as much of the saltiness in the FPL community as I used to, but that might just be because I'm having a really good season. at the moment, and then it just means that I tend to just kind of ignore it. So when you say saltiness, I guess you mean people a bit frustrated that it didn't go well earlier in the season, is my guess. I would just kind of always encourage people to, I don't like using the free hit anywhere near the first 2/3 of the season. I think it's always more useful when you end up with the FA Cup, quarterfinals or the semi-finals. The semi-finals is always the best one to use it on, in my opinion, because on the quarterfinals one, there's 8 teams available, 4 matches available, and so then the pool of players isn't very big. Whereas the semi-final one, you've still got probably a sizable hole in your team, but the teams that are playing, we've only got 4 teams not playing, for example. So the pool of players is just that little bit bigger. So I think is now is the time to use it, as I said before. And Baskar Yoti Bora says, benching White and Stones. Who are these people with such luxuries? Yeah, no, I feel bad. It does feel like a bit of a first world problem that I benched White and still got a green arrow. Clearly, I'm a total fraud, and for that, I can only apologise. So, moving on from my team, we're going to carry on talking about my team. I'm going to talk you through how I came to pick my free hit team as it currently stands. I've not actually hit confirm on it yet because I always try and ride the price rises, not to boost the value of my team long term, but just to boost the value of my team for the free hit. So I've got more players to choose from. And so I haven't really locked this in yet. So the screenshot you're going to see is going to be from the transfers page rather than the team page. But I'm going to walk you through the process of how I picked it, because I think that sometimes free hits can be a bit difficult to construct. But obviously, I would say this. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think that using the Fantasy Football Scout members area is a great way to do it, because you just go through a certain number of different tables, you isolate a couple of different stats, and usually I can throw a free hit together fairly quickly. So I actually threw this one together in about 20 minutes with the help of Fantasy Football Scout's members area, which obviously saves me a lot of time. And if you're not already a member of Fantasy Football Scout, then please do go to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk and click on Members Benefits at the top. Have a read of all the amazing things you're going to get. Sign up now, and you will just be blown away by how much of an impact it has on your overall rank. So check that out after getting a glimpse of what it can help you do when you are on a free hit. So what I did was I went to the Fantasy Football Scout members area and I had a look at teams over the last 4 matches just to get a feel. We're going to start with defence first. I wanted to get a feel for the teams that weren't doing particularly well in front of goal, and I wanted to get a feel for the teams that were defending fairly well. And so I've got 2 stats here. We've got XG of attacks of teams, and I've got XGC of defences of teams. I'm just trying to pair these up. And so I know there's been a lot of talk about Liverpool defence. I mean, let's be honest, I'm not exactly overly confident in the Liverpool defence right now. They haven't been particularly worth investing in for a while. There's been a lot of people questioning the need for 2 Liverpool defenders. And I sort of, when I saw people tweeting, I can't believe people have got 2 Liverpool defenders on their free hits, I was like, yeah, that's fair. I don't know why I would do that. And then I've actually potentially cheekily constructed a free hit that does actually have Trent and Robbo in it, because I just had a look at Nottingham Forest attack, and it is quite poor. Now, anyone who's come to this having just watched or maybe listened to the Forest game, I mean, how they didn't get a goal against United, I will never know, other than just to say this is a team that is struggling to put the ball in the back of the net because, you know, they're in a relegation fight, potentially sapped of confidence. I don't want to go as far as to say they're a championship team, because I think that's unfair on them. But, you know, they're newly promoted, so there's a lot of players in this team perhaps who just don't quite have that Premier League experience in front of goal. And so it's no surprise to me at all that Forest over the last 4 matches have the lowest XG of any team in the Premier League. I did actually take these stats before that game, but I think that game hasn't exactly done much to change my view of them in that regard. Now, a team that I also was interested to see in this particular area of the team was Leicester. They are the second worst from the stats as they were recorded before the Forest game. And then I also happened to notice that Wolves were actually in the top 6 for best XGC over the last 4 matches. Now, I haven't seen that many free hit teams this week because I generally try and avoid looking at other people's teams, but I haven't really heard many people talking about Wolves. I'm not that inspired by Dean Smith coming to Leicester. They did just about claw their way back into making the Man City game a contest, but let's be honest, he took the best players off, didn't he, Pep, after half-time, wasn't it? Because the game was won. And so I don't really think we can read too much into that. I think that was a bit of a free hit, if you pardon the pun, for Leicester, just to have a go, you know, have a bit of a laugh in the last 20 minutes. That's what Pep was like. And so I'm not that overly convinced about their attack. And yeah, Wolves just quietly, potentially plugging along. They've actually got 2 clean sheets in their last 2 matches. And so, yeah, but with Leicester's XG not looking particularly great and Wolves in the top 6 for XGC, yeah, I've actually got 2 Wolves defenders. I'll show you who they are in a minute. Southampton are the team that completes the bottom 3 for XG over the past 4 matches. So, yeah, that does make the case for an Arsenal defender quite strong. Although, I actually, because we're going to see in a minute, Southampton's own defence is so terrible, I think there's a strong case for you actually having 3 Arsenal attackers. They really, 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 really need to absolutely smash Southampton now because they've dropped points in the title race. So, yeah. Other teams that are doing well, we've looked at the teams that are doing bad for attack. Teams that are doing well for defence then. Man City, last 4 matches, they're top for expected goals conceded. And then Aston Villa and Crystal Palace are ones who are doing well in the XGC department. And they actually have a game because Man City, of course, don't play. Now, I'm not surprised about Palace at all. I'm not surprised about Villa either. I think we've all been talking about these defences for a little while, but it's nice to see that they are doing well. I do think that building a free hit around those 2 teams also can be quite useful. And so we'll see who they are in a minute. Before we have a look at my actual team, we've talked about some of the defence. Now we are talking about some of the really bad defences, which I will then pull through into the players who I think can capitalise from them. So, XGC, worst XGC, last 4 matches. We've got Leeds. That comes as no surprise. So as I was saying before, that is useful for knowing that Fulham can potentially get something. Everton are the 2nd worst XGC in that same period. They are playing Crystal Palace. Anyone who has been following Fantasy Football Scout for the last couple of weeks will know that the likes of myself and Tom Freeman, we'll be talking up Eze, Elise. This is just further confirmation here that I think you've got to have a Crystal Palace attacker in your free hit because Everton's defence has been so poor. But what is also quite exciting here is that actually Brentford, for all of the investment in your Henrys and your Ryers, actually 3rd worst XGC in the Premier League in the last 4 matches. So, I wouldn't be worried about having that. Ollie Watkins, he's just on fire, isn't he? So I think that's got to lock Ollie Watkins into a free hit. Leicester, 4th worst for XGC as well. So I haven't actually got a Wolves attacker who I've gone with. But again, if we're just looking for differentials, I think if you're going for one of the Wolves attackers, it's going to be hard to pick them because they don't score many goals. But, that could be somewhere where there's actually a lot more goals than people sort of think there will be. Wolves are very much off the radar, which is why I actually think that having some defenders of theirs on the free hit could actually be quite useful to you. But yeah, I just think that just do consider there because this Leicester team I do think isn't great. So yeah, that's Leicester then. Also a team to target. Southampton are also in the bottom 6 for XGC. So again, as I said, Arsenal attackers, I think we've got to be piling in on them because they really need to run away with it. If anything, if you're looking at Arsenal attackers, I actually think that the fact that Arsenal didn't win today is probably good because it just further puts the onus on Arsenal to start all their best players and just try and beat Southampton by as big a goal scoring margin as they can and do it as quickly as they can so they can just take the pressure off because I think the pressure is just ramping up on them now. And so that could be good. This is definitely a squad with a good mentality and a good determination. So a couple of poor results, even though it might have hit your points from your players. Maybe it helps them get some bigger points in subsequent game weeks. Is maybe a way of looking at it. That's a silver lining approach there. So who can capitalise on those? Well, so more stats here from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. If you're only just joining us, make sure you go sign up as a member and you can get access to all of this. You can play with it as much as you like. It's a great set of toys. What I've done is I've just selected players who are going to play this week because there's a lot of players who aren't. And what it's showing us is that the likes of Watkins, Tony, Eze, Solanke, and Isak and Ben Rama are players who have a fixture in Game Week 32 who have been particularly accurate recently. Anyone who maybe watched the old captaincy videos when I used to do those with Joe will know that my favourite stat in the Premier League is shots on target. Now, it doesn't necessarily always translate to goals because you get some people who have lots of shots on target, but it's just a P-roller and the goalie saves it and, But in the best league in the world, I feel like I can get away with saying that without getting slated in the comments. The vast majority of players who have lots of shot on target are usually players who are scoring goals. And so, we've been talking up Eze, and it's really exciting to see that actually in the last 4 matches, he has 7 shots on target, which is the 3rd best of any player who has a fixture in Game Week 32. We already talked about the Everton defence and how bad they are. I think Eze now has an attacking return in every game since Hodgson came back. I think he's a lock. He's an absolute lock into the free hit now, is Eze. There was talk of Elise, but I think Eze has shown better consistency and actually now better explosivity across all those games. I think he's the one to go for. I said a couple of weeks ago, I think that with Zaha out of the team, Eze actually is the sort of player who can fill that talisman role in the team. He had that role when he was at QPR, so he's been there and he's done it before, being the man that a team relies on. I think he really relishes that. So the stats back it up too. He's someone to look at. Talked about Solanke as well. His stats are just insane. So he's had 15 shots in the box, which I think is the most of any player who's got a game week 32 fixture. 5 of them are big chances, so that's joint second best. That's as many as Salah. He's actually had more shots on target than Salah, with 7 over the last 4 matches. So Solanke, I think, is one to look at as well, and his price is just so good. And if you're worried about having a Bournemouth player, it's just a free hit. So, you've only got him for the 1 week. I mean, you're going to have to find a third striker, whoever you are, because you've got Haaland almost certainly. So, I think he's the way to go. I think there's a little bit of a tricky decision to be made between Kane and Toney, because Toney's stats are way better than Kane's over the last 4. Toney's got 13 shots in the box, 4 big chances, 8 on target. Kane with just 12 shots in the box, 4 big chances and 5 on target. So there's no doubt that Toney actually player-wise is in better form. So it's a tough call. It's a tough call. I'm of a mind actually to go against Spurs. Of a mind, I say. There's a long time between now and the Friday night deadline, but there's just something about Spurs that just unnerves me a little bit at the moment. So yeah, they are the players with the offensive threat. What about the assist potential threat then? And I should just say we're coming towards the end of this video a little bit. So once I've pulled all these stats through into who I loosely chose for my free hit, we can do a bit of a Q&A after that. So throw your questions in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Hikey News already thrown one in, which might be answered in a minute anyway. But yeah, if you've got questions about your team, then do put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. So, the creative players then. Well, Trossard is actually top of big chances created over the last 4, but he's not really a sure starter, so it's not really worth looking at him, to be honest. Saint Maximin, also up there with 4 big chances created. Potential differential, but, is he always going to play? It's hard to say. The ones that are interesting to me are the following. So we got Perisic with 3 big chances created. I think he got the assist for one of Spurs' goals at the weekend. Already talked about Jacob Ramsey. He could be a potential option if you're fully stocked in defence and you can't get to Moreno, and you're just looking for someone in midfield. Maybe Jacob Ramsey somewhere to go because everyone's gonna have Watkins. Him scoring a goal is going to get you nothing other than a grey circle in isolation. So how can you capitalise best on his goals? Get the assister. Jacob Ramsey, technically right now, is the most likely of those to be the assister, according to the stats, with more big chances created than any other Villa player in the last 4. But we cannot overlook Elise, because he is the most creative Crystal Palace player over the same period as well, with 3 big chances for him. Now, I talked about Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Robertson, in the end, I think has gone into my free hit basically just pure nostalgia, because it's been way too long since I owned the guy. When we used to have those premium Liverpool defenders, he was actually the first one we had. He was the OG, and then Trent was kind of like the sequel, because he kind of turned up as a 4.6 million option at the end of one of Robbo's good seasons, and then the next season just kicked on. So Robertson's stats don't look amazing, but Alexander-Arnold's do look pretty strong. So he's created 8 chances in the last 4 matches, and 3 of those have been big, which puts him in the top 3 for that particular stat of players who have fixture in game week 32. So I think that with the ownership that he's going to garner and the fact that he's offering some decent assist potential, I think it's be very difficult to go without him. Hiking News question was Martinelli, Saka and Ødegaard on the free hit. I mean, that's a great question. And, Martinelli, I think, is just, of those 3, he's locked, I think, just because his form has been so good. And he offers assist potential as well, because he's here as the second highest Arsenal player for big chances created over the last 4, behind only Trossard. But is Trossard going to play? Nope. So, we assume not anyway. So Martinelli is the one to go with there. So pulling all those stats through into my free hit then. This is my free hit draft for game week 32. Now, some of this is influenced by a little bit of ownership. Some of this is influenced by some of those stats, and some of this is influenced by some nostalgia. It's just, I've tried to make this as me as I can, because there are certain bases you want to cover. There will be certain players that other people will go to without a free hit. There will be certain players that players will go to with the free hit. So you don't want to be leaving yourself too open to some guys who are going to kill you OR. So they're all the considerations that I put into this free hit team, but I'm just going to talk through it now. So I did promise some healthy Wolves representation, and that is exactly what you will get. With Sarr in goal and Kilman as the two options, I kind of just look at that Leicester game, and I kind of just feel like Wolves, based on how well their defence has played statistically and results-wise in the last couple of matches, and how poor Leicester have been, I think that the chance of a clean sheet there is actually pretty good. And I should just say that the thing about the free hit is, to be honest, I haven't really thought about the 11 yet. I've just thought about the 15. Because at this point in time, as I've said before, I don't want to lock that in. That screenshot, I think I've now closed that window on my computer. Because if I hit activate on that, then I can potentially lose a bit of value on certain players. I go, okay, I might want to bring them back in. That's not going to affect my ability. That's not going to affect my team value for the rest of the season, but it is going to affect my team value for the free hit. So I just, even on the free hit, I just still try and position myself to potentially make as much profit as I can between now and the deadline. So, yeah, I haven't really thought about the 11 yet. And the thing is, for all of that Scrooge-like talk about my value, actually, what you'll notice at the top is that actually the money that I've actually got left over is 4.8 million. I don't think I've ever had a free hit where I've had that much left over. I mean, and to be honest, there aren't really many places I really want to spend it. We'll talk about potentially the forward line in a bit, but yeah, it's and this is, by the way, this is a 4.8 million left in the bank after having Trent and Robbo in the team. So yeah, I mean, if you've already started having a look at your free hit and you're thinking, where do I spend all this money? Let me know, because I want to check. I want to check that I'm not going nuts. I'm not just like the only guy with loads of money in the bank. But yeah, as I said, I will just. I'm a total Scrooge. I am just going to leave my team waiting to get profit, and we'll see what happens. But yes, the 15 then. So 2 Wolves defenders, Sarr and Kilman. And I should just say that we had a question from Hankinu with another question. He loves asking questions. Good man. You make a good journalist one day. Best goalkeeper on a free hit, maybe Martinez. Well, I haven't got Martinez because I was about to say he's too expensive. I got all that money. I don't know. I just quite like the Wolves defence. I don't want to go too heavy on the Villa defence, to be honest, because actually Ivan Toney still looks pretty good. He is someone who I might get in on the free hit. He is still causing a lot of problems for a lot of teams, and I do think that Villa probably will concede a goal to Ivan Toney. So yeah, my only Villa player I think is at the moment is Ollie Watkins, and which is weird in a way because I'm a big fan of Moreno. He's done well, and I want him for the next couple of weeks, but I've actually free hitted him out. This is another reason why I was talking about the use of the free hit, is even though I have some Villa players, for this particular match, actually, I don't really want their defence. So that's just my personal view. I think Villa will concede, whereas I think Wolves have a better chance of a clean sheet. So 2 Wolves defenders. I've also got 2 Palace defenders or defensive assets. So I've got Johnston and Anderson. And there isn't really. I had a look for Palace defenders. I don't really think we need to talk about too much about why that's worth doing. Outside of the fact they play well defensively, got good stats, and Everton haven't looked that great in front of goal. They covered that fairly easy. I was looking for just any Palace defender who really offers any kind of attacking threat, and I did kind of struggle. I mean, Gay maybe, and he is cheaper than Anderson, but to be honest, Anderson he's the heart of that defence. And he's an extra 0.1, but as you can see, I've got money to burn, so why not? So yeah, Anderson was the one to go for. Guaita's still injured, so Johnston's quite worth considering as well. To be honest, I don't really know who I'd actually start out of those guys. I've got 2 Palace defenders, 2 Wolves defenders. Don't know who I'm going to start yet, to be honest, but it doesn't really matter. When you're on a free hit, it doesn't really matter if your bench is really good. You just need, because actually you need your bench to be really good, because you're only going to have that bench for 1 week. You just need to make sure that if they're needed, they come in and they do well. And to be honest, I think it's possibly even a 50-50. A bit of a coin toss between which of Villa and Palace's, Wolves and Palace's defence is more likely to keep the clean sheet. I think they're both as likely as each other. And I might even go with one of each and bench one of each and hedge a little bit. Because I do have Robbo and I do have Alexander-Arnold. I just think Forest don't look good enough to get a goal against Liverpool. And I think that just Liverpool's, a lot of their attacking potential is going to come from those guys. And yeah, a bit of nostalgia. I've got an opportunity to own Robbo for 1 week of the season. Why not? Question from FPL Jones Bloke says, is the Trippier pick influenced by EO? Yes, it is. Absolutely, Trippier is still there on EO because their fixture is actually not bad. in a way. I talked about Spurs. I'm just not sure about them. It's why Kane is not in my draft at the moment. I wouldn't be too shocked if Newcastle, who also, by the way, need to get a result after that game against Villa. They weren't very good at all. They're a kind of team that I feel like actually has the guts to bounce back now. And Trippier is Trippier, right? So he's still in there based on EO because I'm a coward, even though we already established that keeping a player based on EO was my biggest mistake for Game Week 31. Clearly, I never learn. But yes, that's why he's there at the moment. Then midfield then. So Saka and Martinelli, I felt they were the two obvious Arsenal midfielders. When I did this, I did do this before he missed a penalty. But if we're talking about players with determination to come back and do better, I think Saka is one of them. EO is a factor here as well. When you're on a free hit, sometimes you just have to make some EO decisions. And he's probably one I'm prepared to go with. And then Eze, Salah, and Andreas Pereira. I've said before, I just need to have someone I can actually happily bench. And I feel a lot more comfortable benching a Fulham midfielder than I do some of the other really exciting options. Even though I could afford them, as you can see. Because I think it would annoy me more if I go for a more expensive midfielder than Pereira and put them first on my bench, and then they don't deliver. So, you know what? One of my friends once said to me, "Your biggest enemy in FPL is yourself." And hopefully that this video has helped capture that I am my biggest enemy when it comes to FPL, because so many of these decisions are based on mitigating against worst case scenario and what I feel comfortable with. So finally, then the forwards, I got Watkins, I got Jesus, and I got Solanke. Solanke was like one of the first people I put on the free hit because I just think their fixture is really good. I think they will eye up that West Ham game as a winnable game. West Ham did actually play really well today against Arsenal, but only after they, I want to say capitulated, but not capitulated in the sense they lost the game, but they capitulated in the first 10 minutes because they just got completely brushed aside in the first 10 minutes. So this West Ham team is still capable of that happening. Solanke is just on fire right now. And, I think that a lot of people will be going for him. So I think, if it was toss, well, actually, the first thing I did in the free hit was take out Kane and put in Solanke. I mean, that felt really good. Jesus in there as well. I'm less sure on Jesus than I think I was because he actually came off in this game against West Ham, which I didn't really understand. I know Arsenal fans weren't so keen on either. Maybe Arteta learns from it, but I don't know. I just feel like he could be someone I'm quite happy to rely on. I want to be all in, to be honest, on the Arsenal attack for this game rather than the defence, because I think I'm just starting to learn that you can't really rely on them. I think what we've seen is that if Arsenal are going to win the league, they are going to do it by just scoring one more than you, to quote Vindaloo. I don't think they're going to be putting teams, it's not going to be 1-0. They are having to really fight and graft for these points because I just think that they're not quite as sure at the back as they probably want to be. So it's a bit of a tilt to go without their defence, but it could pay off because Southampton, I think, are terrible. And I think they're down, and I think they know that they're down. So yeah, Jesus there. And then Watkins, do I even need to talk about why Watkins is in the team? I don't think I do. So yes, that's the way my free hit team is looking at the moment. Please tell me how terrible it is. If it is terrible, I'm willing to take some advice on that one. We've got a few more minutes left, so if you've got any more questions, then do stick them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll just read out a couple more comments and say a quick few thank yous to those of you who are in the chat and have been joining the discussion. We got Luke Deemer said that Andy, I'm guessing this was Let's Talk FPL. It could be FPL mode. One of the Andys. He said that Andy knew Ederson was a poor choice, but did it anyway. Now, what I will say is I've been there and I've done that too. Sometimes it's a bad choice, but you just kind of feel like you need to do it anyway, or you want to do it. I mean, I did it with the Odegaard and Saka. Those of you who follow me on Twitter will see that I even said it before the deadline. I was like, I know that Odegaard actually has better stats than Saka over the last 4 matches, but I'm too scared. I need Salah. I've got to sell an Arsenal midfielder to do it. Odegaard is the one I feel, in inverted commas, more comfortable moving on. I knew it was a mistake, and it burned me anyway. Sometimes that just happens. As I said, sometimes your own worst enemy in FPL is yourself. Charlie Lambert says, thoughts on Eze overperforming his XGI. Now, I will just say, I've not actually looked at his XGI, and I probably should have done. But I can still answer this question to say that if he is doing that, I'm not too worried, because I think that his actual raw stats, if we want to call them that, because XGI is a sort of like the thinking man stats. The raw stats for SA are actually still pretty good. And so I don't know if you're joining us late or perhaps maybe just missed a bit earlier when I went through some of Eze's stats. Check back maybe 15 minutes ago and you'll see when I was talking about those. Eze actually is in the top 3 for shots on target in the last 4 matches, and that's usually a good tester of someone who isn't overperforming against their XGI, because someone who's overperforming against their XGI is someone who is having... Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. He's having lots of big chances, he's having lots of shots in the box, and he's having lots of shots on target. To overperform against your XGI is normally someone who isn't having lots of those, of some of those stats, and still scoring goals anyway. If someone has got just decent raw stats, they're shooting lots, they're shooting in the right place, when they are shooting in the right place, it's a big chance, and when they're having a shot in the right place, it's a big chance, it's on target. That is someone who is usually in a position where they can probably keep that up for a couple more weeks. So I'm not too worried about that. And to be honest, is Eze becoming... I don't know what his ownership is. I haven't looked it up, but it's not going to be high. But amongst active players who have free hits, I think he's going to be there. So I'm not too worried about that. Martin Newland says, Leicester will beat Wolves and you need Maddison. Well, anything can happen in football, right? I've talked up Wolves. The stats suggest that Wolves could win that game 2-0. But of course, Dean Smith is a new manager. We only do have the one game, and it was against City, so how much can we learn? Not very much. I will still say that. Maybe they get a result. I personally think it's unlikely, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. I'm not saying this to suggest your bias here, Martin, but if you are a Leicester fan, do let me know. Because I'd be intrigued to see what's making you think that Leicester will win that game. Just, if nothing else, for the discussion factor, rather than to... I'm not trying to, call you out. What No Graphics says, I've just done a free hit draft and I have 7.2 million left over. It just seems so wrong. It really does. Although actually, the thing is, even though it might seem wrong to you, my friend, it maybe feels just right for me, because I did say if there's anyone out there who is in the same boat as me, done their free hit and gone, wow, I've got so much money left over, have I done something wrong? Well, there's 2 of us now, just the 2 of us, my friend, hopefully more. Maybe that means that the best players just are the cheaper ones. That wouldn't be that weird. We've had a season of that. I've had loads of money in the bank for ages. If you could extract FPL money and take it into real life, we'd all be on a boat this year, right? We'd all have our own yacht, we'd all have our own mansions, because the amount of spare money there is just great, because we've just got so many budget options. And if that carries on into a free hit blank game week, well, that's just par for the course, I think, for this season. So increasingly coming around to the view that maybe we don't need to be too worried that we're not making a mistake. I think it will probably come down to whether or not you want to have Kane. Because if I'm going to have Kane, I'm going to have to spend at least 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 million versus the other forwards I've got, and then then maybe we're in a situation where we're not wasting is the wrong word, when we're to use a bargain hunt term, slightly less leftover lolly. That's the thinking there, really, is whether or not you have Kane, and bearing in mind that he didn't get anything against Bournemouth, and Spurs are a bit, kind of feels end of an era in a way. There's no manager, there's no hope of a manager by the sounds of it, and Kane and Son aren't getting any younger. I wouldn't be too surprised if they're winding down, thinking I'm done. This is the time to go. So even though Kane is not that far behind Haaland in overall points, because he has just ticked along, I'm a bit worried about him as an asset in the next couple of weeks. Charlie Lambert says, is Jarrod Bowen a differential? Decent form. Yes, he absolutely could be. When I was looking at these stats earlier, it was actually before the Arsenal game, so it doesn't factor that in. I did think he played really well. I think West Ham aren't going to be on many people's radars because they haven't done that well in the medium term, but I've been relatively impressed with their form in the recent short term, which I'm very pleased by. Anyone who stalks me too much, will know that my dad is a West Ham fan. So West Ham I've always had a bit of a soft spot for, and so I like to see West Ham do well. I've never been that worried about them going down. Even when they lost at home to Newcastle, I wasn't thinking, I thought it might be a game that he might lose his job over, but I wasn't feeling like it would be fair if that happened with David Moyes, because I do still think that this West Ham team has the ability to... At the time I was thinking it has the ability to stay up. I think they should keep Moyes as the manager. Losing to Newcastle this season, actually, there's no shame in it because they're doing really well. And he's West Ham. If they were Watford, let's be honest, they would have sacked him from that game. If it was many other clubs, I think they may have sacked him. The fact that he's stayed in the post and picked up the points in the last couple of games, I'm really impressed with the way that they came back from being 2-0 down today. I was a bit worried at 15 minutes in, thinking, well, they're going to get a tonk in here. But they really dug deep and they pulled a gutsy display out of being 2-0 down to the league leaders. I mean, that takes a lot of steel. And one of those players to do that and do well was Jarrod Bowen. So he could be one to look at because I don't think people are going to be looking at him. And Bournemouth's defence aren't exactly great. So, yeah, he's one to look at. If you're looking for slots in the midfield, it could be tricky because I think Salah is going to be a lock. I think everybody's going to have at least one, maybe two Arsenal midfield players. I think I would feel more confident owning Eze than Bowen right now just because Eze has already demonstrated it a little bit more. And I actually still just about prefer Palace's fixture because I actually think that Bournemouth right now are a better team than Everton. But the thing about a free hit is it might not necessarily be the best option on paper. Sometimes you just take a bit of a risk, or you go with a nostalgia pick, or you go with an option that just makes you feel good about picking it because at the end of the day, this is a game, you've got to have some fun. If you're going to find it boring to go with what everyone else is doing, then Bowen maybe is the one for you. So that would be my advice there. I'll take this as the last question then. So this is from FPL Jones Bloke, who says, going forward, is it worth downgrading Kane and selling either Bruno or Saka to get Salah or KDB? Well, that is sort of in line with what I've kind of already been planning for my team. So I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think Salah is from this point onwards, I feel like Salah is going to be a must-own. Obviously, we're going into a Monday night game that he hasn't played yet, but I think he was going to do well there. He has a game in game week 32, a really good game against a Forest team who are rubbish away from home, and Liverpool are still pretty solid and pretty good attacking-wise at Anfield. So I think that he is going to be big for the game week 31, and he's going to be big for game week 32, and then their fixtures continue to be good after that. And with Spurs kind of chipping up and, Newcastle not off the boil, but, I don't know. I just feel like Liverpool are really going to go for the, they've got an outside chance of getting some European football. So they've really got to go for it. So I think that Salah, definitely. If I was being asked, do you want Salah or Kane for the last run of the season, it's Salah kind of without blinking, if it's a choice between those two. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd like a Kane to be in good form so that I can justify having him and Salah, but it's kind of tricky right now because you've got Haaland as well. Selling Bruno, though, I don't think we want to sell Bruno. And actually, for the short term, I would rather own Bruno than KDB. I think. I might eat those words. But Haaland, I think you got to have Haaland, right? And so if you're going to have KDB, it's going to be on top of Haaland. And it means potentially going... I mean, a lot of this all sort of depends on when Rashford is back. If Rashford is back, then maybe you don't need Bruno. But if Rashford isn't back, then I still think he's worth going for. I know he didn't get his points against Everton, and I know he didn't get points against Forest either. But I think we can all agree that he was unfortunate not to. I think we've now seen that him playing in a slightly deeper role doesn't necessarily hamper his fantasy ability because he's still creating chances, still having shots. I think that the circumstances are actually conspiring to help push him closer to the goal anyway, because... let's get this right. Casemiro is back. Ederson also came back last week, was actually on the bench for the Forest game, but had to come into the team because Sabitzer picked up an injury, and Sabitzer has been playing further forward. So that just allows Fernandes to just open up a little bit further forward in midfield. So I wouldn't be too quick to dismiss Fernandes as an option. I wouldn't be too surprised if in a couple of weeks' time it's going to be, all hands on deck to the sign Bruno Fernandes ship or whatever vehicle you want to put him on. I wouldn't be too surprised because I still think that he's going to be a good option for that double especially. I said it was going to be the last question. I will take this last one from Martin. He said, what's your thoughts on Darwin and a free hit? I am going nowhere near Darwin Nunez. He hasn't even come into my thoughts yet. I just can't guarantee he's going to start the game. I mean, the thing is, on the Liverpool, I could if I wanted to because it's a free hit. Why not? Tilt and take a chance on double Liverpool attack for that Forest game because I do think Liverpool are going to destroy Forest. I do think that's going to happen, but right now I just don't really know who starts in it. We're back to a sort of rotation. Well, I say back to. We've never really had that with the Liverpool attack. Historically, it's a bit of a weird place to be. Salah is really the only one I feel comfortable going with because I just Gakpo I'm not sure on. even if he's going to play, if he's necessarily going to get something. You've got a couple of other players revolving around. Even if Darwin was likely to play, he's just a bit too much of a chaos machine. I can envisage him starting the game and hitting the crossbar 7 times, and no one would turn around and be like, that was in any way surprising. That would be so on brand for him for this season. I just personally can't cope with that stress. That's me. So I'm not going to consider him, but I'll just go back to what I said, and I will finish on this point, that when you're on a free hit, I mean, it does what it says on the tin, right? It gives you the opportunity to make as many decisions as you want that basically have minimal consequences. Whatever you go with, they're not going to be in your team when the game week is done. And I feel like as long as you've covered yourself against some of the main, I know I've already talked about how effective ownership can force you into cowards decisions. I get that, but there are some you're just going to have to make. Like, you're going to have Salah. You are going to have an Arsenal attacker. Almost certainly Martinelli, for example. Watkins is another one. Tick those boxes. Once you've ticked those boxes, there is a little bit of wiggle room for you to make some decisions that make you feel like yourself. If you're the sort of person who wants to own a Darwin because it makes you feel good to have the chaos machine on the one week when the chaos machine is a goal machine, and that's going to make you feel good, and you just got this, I think it's going to be this week. Do it, because this game is supposed to be fun, and I'm the sort of person who takes fun in kind of making safe decisions and doing what everyone else does, because it makes me personally feel more happy and more confident going into the game week. And then even if it goes badly, I at least can, reward myself or console myself knowing that I made the right decision because everybody else did it. That's how I play. If you're the sort of person who has a different approach, you have to play it the way you want to play it. So I don't want to sit here and slag Núñez off as an option for everybody else. I'm just slagging him off as an option for me, if that makes sense. So yeah. So that is everything from me for this week. As ever, a big thank you to everyone who watched or listened, wherever it was that you engaged with this content. Another reminder to like this video, subscribe to Fantasy Football Scout, and hit the bell notification so you miss no more content like this. It's a big week coming up, so make sure that you don't miss the Scoutcast on, I think it's Tuesday. Make sure you don't miss the team news as well, which will be on Friday with Neil, I would imagine. Really important this week, as with most weeks is important, but when you're on a free hit, it's doubly important. So make sure you check that out. Burning questions as well, stats of the day. Always great content on this channel, which I can say with impunity because this is the only video that I actually have anything to do with. So I can talk up the rest of those videos without having to feel like I'm being, biased or hubristic or anything like that. So do check it out. It's fantastic. And another reminder that if you're not a member of fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, head to the website, go to members benefits, have a look at all the things that you will receive when you've signed up. Sign up and watch your overall rank soar, and watch the green arrows increase in size. So with that, it's a goodbye from me. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I will see you next week.